You shouldn't be happy all the time, believe it or not. This might strike you as a bit obvious, this title, this intro, but maybe not, depending on who you are and your beliefs. But I have to say, regardless of all that, it really stands to be quite true that these days I'm seeing quite a few actions among us that seem to point to the conclusion that we actually don't see this as obvious. There is the obvious movement of the just do you people and find what makes you happy. You deserve to be happy. This kind of lifestyle has become a lot more prominent in this day and age. And while I'm not an advocate for just being a miserable sad sap all the time, believe it or not, I do think that there's something fundamentally wrong with the endless pursuit of ultimate happiness, shall we call it. And we all seem to be tempted towards it in this time because it is really everywhere. I mean, just look at the thing you're watching this video on. More than likely, it is distracting you a good portion of the day. We don't need to talk about screen times. But the temptation is everywhere to constantly make ourselves as happy as we can be. And of course, this is folly. Who would have thought? For one thing, paradise is impossible. And the paradox of it is that when you strive to create this perfect paradise out of your life, you actually end up doing the opposite. Let's get some good old-fashioned illustration via graph to show you what I'm talking about. So, happiness. Go ahead and stop judging my handwriting right now and until the end of the video. We're going to go ahead and start with our chart of what we expect. So in this endless pursuit of happiness, you are seeking highs upon highs upon highs, right? It makes sense logically. If I feel good doing this, why would I ever do anything else? This is the result of choosing not to do laundry because that's boring, that sucks, I hate it. Let's procrastinate by scrolling through Facebook, TikTok, sorry, forgot what year I'm in. Or playing video games, definitely not my distraction of choice. These things that release that quick dopamine hit that are fun in the moment, but inevitably lead to diminishing returns. We'll get to that in a second. The theory is if we're always chasing highs, our zone of neutrality, that kind of steady baseline that we all more or less have, is going to tail behind it. As in, even when I'm not chasing these highs, because I'm pursuing happiness above all else, my zone of neutrality must inevitably follow. And that will lead to, no lows at all. That's what we expect. However, what actually happens? As we chase these endless highs, we experience not the same level of high as we chase them. This has been well documented over and over again. Don't take my word for it, although I'm sure you've experienced it yourself. The thing that you found that was new and exciting and really engaged you isn't always going to keep that same level of reward, for lack of better terms. Over time, you'll get tired of it. You crave the new high because a high isn't going to stay at that level forever. It has diminishing returns. It's human nature. You crave what is new. You crave the next big high. The problem, if that wasn't enough of a problem, is that the zone of neutrality doesn't actually raise behind your happiness. It can start to, based on the level of highs you chase, but you end up actually having a big crash based on the level of highs you are constantly chasing. Instead of having no lows at all, you have bigger and worse lows than lows. Bigger and worse lows than you've ever experienced before. This is based on the zone of neutrality actually chasing your highs so much that it peaks into the low points of your highs. Why is that a problem? Well, based on the amount of highs you're used to and the highs you're craving and the amount of pleasure you let yourself constantly be after, your zone of neutral can't stay the same. It does have to go somewhere. And instead of just going to, oh, I'm happy, no matter what, it actually leads to those low spikes of your highs, which are actually big low spikes in of themselves, being where your zone of neutral lies. In other words, maybe I'm really making this convoluted, but in other words, it basically means that your zone of neutral is at a permanent low based on purely the pursuit of these highs. When you're not in a high, you are low because your zone of neutrality is not at that steady base level. you can't live there anymore because all you can work in and through is highs. That's a problem, believe it or not, if you've never experienced it yourself. The worst case scenario for all of this is the obvious stuff, right? Like we see this all the time in hardcore drug addiction. That's the big problem. The diminishing returns, chasing the next high, that's a very real world example, means that whenever you are not in that severe high, you are not in neutral because neutral has been adjusted for the worst. When you're in neutral, you're actually in the worst low imaginable because you are so used to these constant highs. And this is obviously not exactly the same because we're not talking about hardcore drugs. We're talking about just life as we live it in the so-called normal scale. But it's the same principle. When you are chasing all of these constant distractions, all of these constant things that will make you happy in the moment, you are setting yourself up to not just experience lows, but experience the worst lows that you could actually imagine. And that may sound dramatic, but you've probably experienced it and you know it to be true. I don't need to get into everyone's screen time, but I'm sure it's a good portion of your day. And I think that's a perfect real world example that at this point we can all relate to of how much we are instantly looking at our phone, clicking on one app, even subconsciously, because there is that subconscious knowledge that a dopamine hit is waiting, that like I can be distracted real quick right here now. The first app I'm opening is Instagram. There we go. I didn't even think about it. It's just I looked at my phone, Instagram was open, and now I'm distracting myself trying to escape whatever I'm trying to escape in my real world situation. But the hope is there is something to shoot for. So this is what we're shooting for, a life of course, highs. I'm not saying avoid all pleasurable things all the time. But I think it needs to be intentional, knowing that there is some lows that you should not only expect, but maybe seek out. Because as we live life this way, seeking minimal highs, we of course have our inevitable lows that follow. It's a direct contrast. And when it is set this way, that zone of neutrality, which is probably the most important, I should have mentioned earlier, out of all of these lines, is at that steady base level that you want it at. But more than that, this is what happens over time when we go this route. We have, like I said, our highs that we are not chasing so severely, but we are having intentionally, the lows that directly correlate and contrast in relation to those highs. And our zone of neutrality actually does rise over time. Why does that happen? Well, when you have that balance, when all things are perfectly balanced as they should be. To quote the great, not supervillain Thanos, why does the zone of neutrality go up instead of down when we live perfectly balanced? Well, like it or not, you actually only truly love and appreciate the things you actually struggle for, the things you earn. And I bring this up because if you are living in a way only seeking highs, struggles are still gonna come. And I don't think you want the struggles to choose you. If you live this way of accepting and being empowered by the lows that are inevitably coming, in a lot of ways, for lack of better terms, you can choose these struggles. These are the things that you want to labor over. And to get biblical with it, we're supposed to consider our trials pure joy. It says in the book of James, to consider all trials pure joy. They build character and perseverance. And not only that, there's an element of, to some degree, not all struggles, but to some degree, being able to choose the things you struggle over based on your choices in life, what job you choose, who you hang out with, where you go on a day-to-day basis, the things you do, the things you don't procrastinate on, for example. Because the reality of life is struggle. Struggle comes in all shapes and sizes and in all facets of life. Tom Brady has struggles, and the homeless man has struggles. More than likely, you're desiring Tom Brady's struggles, but this is important because you should desire specific struggles and hardships in life. If you don't, then more than likely, life will hand you struggles that you do not want. That was my cat. Setting out to choose as many options in life that make you happy as possible leads to struggles choosing you. Setting out to choose hardships in areas that you care about leads to struggles that bring meaningful results. And yes, some real happiness. I think this can really come down to focusing on what it is you really want to achieve. That dream, that purpose should come with its set of struggles that make you appreciate it all the more once it's achieved. And the funny thing is, when you have a specific goal that you are pursuing, you are happy. When you lack purpose, it's easy to choose what is easy. It's easy to choose all the distractions that give you those instant bursts of dopamine and seem to work in place of a dream for a time. But choosing nothing but those easy short-term distractions just to distract yourself leads to misery, accompanied by life struggles that come to you no matter how many distractions you make for yourself. A great quote by Viktor Frankl. I'm sorry if I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. I'm sorry. But the quote is, when a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. Now, I spent quite a few years living this exact thing out. I let go of my meaningful struggles and chose distractions instead. It seems to be the trap that most 20-somethings fall into at one point or another. You just work your pointless job that you wish you didn't have. You come home and watch TV, play your video games, hang out with any and all friends at any and all times. And are somehow more miserable every day, even though you're doing all these things that supposedly can make you happy. And to be completely honest with you guys, it really is only about a year ago where I got back on track in striving towards my purposes. And I can truly say I have never worked harder on any of the stuff that I feel called to, never been more frustrated with outcomes or felt more waves of doubt hit me on the worst of days. But I've never been happier. I've never been this tuned into my fitness, my nutrition, my goals, my progress, my music, my influencer career. Yeah, I said it. And I've never been this strong at battling that doubt and that negativity when it strikes. There is power in choosing your struggle. Choose your struggle and the happiness will join. Seek nothing but happiness and the struggle will choose you in the worst way possible. Sorry, I wanted to end on like some really profound, like perfect little 2-sentence statement there, but I just have to remind you, it's struggles that choose you. You don't want the struggles that choose you. Okay, call it there. Hey, thanks for watching this video. I'm sorry if it was super convoluted or like, I don't know, maybe didn't make the best of sense. I tried, and hopefully it resonated with at least someone out there. But if you're still watching, really thankful. Please hit the subscribe, hit the like. Please just do all those YouTuber things, all the things that every YouTuber asks for. It would mean a lot to me. And I will see you in the next one, whatever we end up talking about next time. With any luck, to a better ability of explanation. That might be a top tier thing to avoid. I'm just kidding. I swear. I'll change his diapers. I will.